All right, here's our last video for section 9.3. So here we're actually going to use reference angles to help us evaluate any angle that we're given, both positive and negative. It could be larger than 360, less than negative 360. What we're going to do is show how the reference angles can actually help us evaluate every trig function. So first of all, what we need to know is we're just going to do A right here because we're not worried about the cosecant. So we're going to try to find the tangent of negative 240. Now, that's not one that you know right off the bat. It's not one that you're familiar with. So sometimes finding the reference angle actually helps us evaluate these a little bit easier. So there's a couple things you need to remember with reference angles. So if we're going to evaluate a trig function, here are the three steps that we want to do. Okay, so we've got, first thing we want to do is we need to find the reference angle. Okay, so to evaluate the trig function for any angle, step one is to find the reference angle. Step two, evaluate the trig function for that angle. And the third step, determine the sign of the trig function value for the quadrant in which theta lies. So what we're going to do is, remember, our reference angle is always going to be a positive angle between 0 and 90, okay, because we're always finding the distance from our terminal side to the x-axis. So we're always going to be finding the sine, cosine, or tangent of a positive angle between 0 and 90. That's what our reference angle is going to be. However, our angle that we're actually evaluating isn't always going to be a positive angle. So what we need to do is, we've got this chart right here that's going to show you the signs. Now when I say sign, I mean positive or negative. It's going to show you the signs for all three of our trig functions. Now remember, we're not worried about the cosecant, secant, and cotangent right now, so you can cross these out. What this chart shows you is you need to figure out, when you get to step 3, to figure out what sign your trig function is supposed to be, you need to figure out where your terminal side lies, and then you look at this chart. Depending on whether you're taking the sine, cosine, or tangent, this chart is going to tell you if it's going to be positive or negative. So for example, let's say let's go back to our example. Okay, we're going to come back to this chart. You're going to see more in a second. So let's go to our first example. We want to evaluate the tangent of negative 240. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this for us. So here's our coordinate plane. Excuse a little bump right there. Here's our initial side. Now negative 240, if we go clockwise, this is 180, and we go up a little bit more, negative 240 is going to look like this for us. This right here is negative 240. Now we want to find the tangent of that. So step one is to find the reference angle. So what does theta prime equal? Now here, the reference angle is going to be this distance from the terminal side to the x-axis. Now, since negative 240, we know this is negative 180, so 240 minus 180, we've gone 60 degrees. So we know our reference angle is going to be 60 degrees. Okay, so that's the first step. So 60 degrees right here. Okay, the next step is to evaluate the trig function of it. So here we're taking the tangent of 60 degrees. So we're changing our problem around a little bit. Okay, instead of finding the tangent of negative 240, we're now taking the tangent of 60 degrees. Okay, now in this one, we know that the tangent of 60 degrees, we know that from our work with the with finding those special angles, we know that the tangent is square root of 3. Okay, this is one of the benefits. You're going to be comfortable, you're going to know all of these values, these special angles, 30, 60, 45. You're going to be very comfortable finding these. So that's why we want to find the reference angle instead of doing negative 240. Okay, but we're not done yet. This isn't our final answer. Okay, our third step is we have to look at the sine and see what if the tangent is supposed to be positive or negative. Okay, we know the tangent of 60 is positive root 3, but that doesn't mean the tangent of negative 240. Okay, so now what we do, this is going to erase for a second, so you might have to come back to this. So remember right now, we're on step 2. We figured out that the reference angle tangent is root 3. So what we do, let's go back to our chart right here. Now, remember, our angle, I'm just going to kind of draw it on here for us. Our angle was negative 240, which came out here. So our terminal side was in quadrant 2. So this third step, determine the sine of the trig function value from the quadrant in which theta lies. So since our terminal side lies in quadrant 2, cross these out, we look at this chart right here. We see that the sine of any angle whose terminal side lies in quadrant 2 is going to be positive. The cosine of any angle in quadrant 2 is going to be negative, and the tangent of any angle in quadrant 2 is going to be negative. So what this tells us is that our tangent is going to be negative. So we go back here, and because it's in quadrant 2, we know that it's going to be negative root 3. Okay, remember the tangent of 60 is positive root 3, but on step 3, determining the sine, because our terminal side lied in quadrant 2, it's going to be negative. Now, if we were finding out the terminal side of an angle that lied in quadrant 3, if we were taking the tangent, then that would be positive. Okay, so these are the 3 steps you need to follow evaluating trig functions using the reference angle. First, you find the reference angle. Remember, that's always going to be a positive angle between 0 and 90. The next step, evaluate the trig function, so either the sine, cosine, or tangent of that angle. Third, come find what quadrant your terminal side lies in, and then look at this chart to see which sine it's supposed to be. Okay? Notice in quadrant 1, the sine, cosine, and tangent are all positive. Quadrant 2, only the sine's positive. Quadrant 3, only the tangent's positive. Quadrant 4, only the cosine is positive. Now we're going to learn some tricks to memorize this in class, but for right now, for the problem I'm going to have you do, come back here and look at this reference right here. Okay, so the problem that I want you to do now is I want you to do part B. So your answer is going to be in radians, but the process is the same. You're just finding it in radians instead of degrees. I want you to evaluate the cosine of 10 pi over 4 using the 3 steps that we just did. Okay, so make sure you write your answer with the right sign, either positive or negative, and for your actual, for your answer, make sure it's got the right positive or negative. Okay, use all 3 of the steps. You can go back and watch if you need a little more help. Okay, now that you've done this, I've got another Google Doc that you guys are going to go to. So you're going to see another question box pop up here in just a minute. And what you need to do is I need you to follow that link. And sorry about that. I need you to go to the link and type that in, just like we talked about in class. If it says that you need permission, just go to Google Drive, log into your school account, your srvusd.net account, and then retype in the link, and then that'll take you there. Okay, so you shouldn't have anyone that's not able to do that. If it says you need permission, log into your srvusd Google Drive account, type in the link again, and it should work fine. It's been working fine for everyone else.